So it is by now well known that my passion for Star Wars has kind of faded over the years. And in all honesty, it's kind of faded a long time ago. In a galaxy far, far away, you might say. But I actually have a few videos talking about that as a concept, what I used to like about Star Wars, and what I still do, sort of, and the interesting stories that I think it's possible to tell in such a universe. And how I was born in the tragic era wherein the creator of such a fascinating story sadly went on to create several other works set in that very universe, and it was kind of a mostly downhill spiral from there. Beginning with Return of the Jedi, which featured freaking Ewoks and thinly veiled racism and unearned forgiveness of a mass murderer and an awful lot of female exploitation. Not to mention Sheev Palpatine, who is kind of a dunderhead of a character who I just don't like, and I find it hard to articulate why that is, because I usually love it when the villain turns out to be an evil old wizard. Um, just not for the Emperor for whatever reason. It just that recipe doesn't work for me. Um, and that's probably because Vader is just very cool and the Emperor isn't. Alas, I'm not here to talk about how George Lucas can't write a coherent story to save his life, nor am I here to talk about his successors on behalf of King Mortimer of House Mouse and how they have generally managed to do somehow just as bad at managing the beloved franchise, if not worse. Um, no, because against all odds, I'm all reason and logic. I'm here to talk about something that I actually kind of enjoyed. I'm here to talk about a character, one character in that entire universe who has not really once been tarnished or had the logic of his character grossly rewritten or called into question. There is one character, one who just got his own TV series, which I was terrified to watch. Actually, I was terrified to watch it because I was afraid that they would ruin this character, my favorite character in the series, that he would be sadly, mangled by someone with a bad idea to make some dramatic alteration to his character to make him something that he is not. But I didn't have to worry, I guess, because instead of all that, we got Maul, Shadow Lord, an animated adventure in the Star Wars universe, following the late, great, formerly Darth Maul, as he seeks to rebuild his criminal empire while also trying to overthrow the, capital E empire of Star Wars. Granted, we kind of already know what's going to happen to Maul, having watched everything else, generally speaking. Maul's story is already written. But in Shadow Lord, he gets to kind of emote and take center stage like a Shakespearean hero or villain whose destiny is already written in the stars, if you will, and who still manages to just kind of chew the scenery, and we learn about his tragic motivations and his horrible backstory and his trauma and how that kind of fuels his quote unquote evil, and on the way we have a very interesting cast, I think, of fairly likable protagonists, all things considered, people who are just trying to survive and in a galaxy that is obviously trying to destroy them. You have like runaway Jedi like Master Daki and his Padawan Devon, which I get that every character being a secret surviving Jedi kind of sucks, and I'm right there with you guys, but they work in this like they serve a purpose. There's a reason that they're Jedi, and it kind of works. they aren't really your typical heroes either, which I kind of like. They really are just trying to survive, like Maul, and that creates some interesting parallels with like Devon, who is interesting in a lot of ways. Like Maul kind of get he gets to thrive in this while also forming like this kind of weird attachment to her, almost like he sees a bit of himself in her. Because Maul always is like looking for an apprentice, right? He's looking to like uh, I almost think like at first you think it's just like the kind of Sith always want an apprentice thing, but I think it's more than that. It's like he's trying to find a replacement for his brother, right, who he lost at such a young age. He wants that kind of sibling slash child, someone to look after. And it's interesting because Devon was taken from her home at a young age, just like Maul. She was taken by the Jedi instead of the Sith, but also indoctrinated into that cult, right? And at least from Maul's point of view, but even more, her life was also ruined by the same man who ruined Maul's life, Sheev Palpatine, who in this is portrayed as this kind of ghostly, distant figure. Like the memory of him is all that remains, all that matters, I guess. Because the Emperor is still around, but he's not present. And Maul is just kind of haunted by the memory of Palpatine, which improves Palpatine as a character, right? I've mentioned before, in this video how I don't like Sheev Palpatine. In this, I don't mind what they're doing with him, and all the while, his empire is an imposing presence. It is powerful and menacing and capable of doing dark and dangerous things. Like the Emperor has built for himself this Goliath of industry and evil. The stormtroopers are no joke. They can hit their targets, and the Inquisitors are even more imposing and dangerous in this. Um, you have like the Crow from the some one of the I think Tales of the Jedi he showed up in. But you also have that guy from Ahsoka, right? The guy in the kind of weird armor. I forget his name, but they're both characters who look very cool. But who I was never really interested in because they never really got a lot of screen time before. Until in this, they show up as like the freaking secret police, like moving around, and they are scary. They are like dressed in the kind of weird medieval torture armor on a hunt for force wielders, and it's really kind of leads into that the Empire as this properly dystopian, tyrannical uh, state where the Inquisitors have free reign, um, and they're of course led in this by someone you may have heard of, an important somebody. He doesn't speak in this, which is interesting, but kind of you expected it because the voice actor has sadly passed, but I don't think your man needs to speak because he only shows up for at the very end of the show. I I guess that's a slight spoiler. Apologies for that, but he shows up at the end of the show to wreck shop, and there's nothing to say really. I don't think he has anything to say to these characters. He is taking the role in this of freaking Jason Voorhees, Mr. X coming through the wall. He's the death dealer, the freaking end of days for these people. He shows up. There's no reasoning with him. Bull in a china shop. He shows up. He showed up in Jedi's Fallen Order, and the whole point was that you need to run away from him. Which, yeah, they're kind of leaning into that. Him as a horror villain, and I love that. Like I said, it's a good show that actually treats every character with respect. Even the droids, who were always like comedy relief, in this, they're still kind of funny at times, but also they're like treated with respect as actual characters and actual droids that have specific programming and have a hard time operating against that programming, etc., etc. Um, Altogether, I don't know if it's. I don't think it's restored my faith in Star Wars necessarily, but it's a very good standalone story, is what I'm saying, with a lot of layers to it, a lot of depth, some cool fights, cool stuff happens an awful lot in this, um, and it's a tribute to he who always manages to survive, right? Maul, who thrives on hatred and his thirst for vengeance. Maul, who's my favorite character in Star Wars because he has never he's only ever been improved as a character, I think. My only like regret is that he loses most of the fights that he's in. Like looking back on his career, uh, he doesn't have a great track record against anyone who can like defend themselves with any like skill, right? Fighting just like non-force wielders, just random people. He's of course a monster. He's a beast, but he doesn't win a lot of fights against he every fight against Kenobi he lost pretty or fought to a standstill. Um, but I don't think that's against the character. I think that's a part of his character. He survives despite losing. He's a freaking cockroach with high ambitions, and that's kind of rude to say of my favorite character. That's why I like about him. Maul always survives until he doesn't. That's even better. And it's just impressive how they've managed to do this. How they've managed to keep improving Maul as a character, despite the track record of making everything worse. Right? They make Luke Skywalker worse, and Ben Kenobi, and the Clone Wars itself. That's like an old gripe for thanks for that, George. But anyway, altogether, as I said, this show proves what kind of cool ass stuff can be done with Star Wars by people who care, intelligent people who care about the story and what they're doing. Um, so yeah, like and subscribe. I've been your host, Connor Landon Freeman, an author of weird fiction and a game designer and an amateur poet. I'm a medieval history buff, and I am obsessed with wizards and wizard stories, be it in the realm of sword and sorcery, occult horror, or in a galaxy far, far away. I'll have more for you soon. So yeah, bye.